morning, bitches.
Good morning. It is Thursday.
It's a very, very autumnal Thursday.
Yep. I have
center us a little better, you know.
Yep. I've gone back to pajamas for the show because punk. Which, you know, as we continue in our discussion of the 1984 Emilio Estevez and Harry Dean Stanton vehicle. See what I did there?
Yeah.
Repo Man.
Yes.
Which is a story about punks doing punk rock things.
Cars and aliens.
And aliens. I mean, it really has everything that you could want in a film.
It's really a treat.
It was, and you know, we had a glowing review of it on Tuesday, and we still think pretty highly of it, even after writing the song that we wrote.
Yeah. So as some of you all know, the show format at the moment is that we watch a movie, and then on Tuesdays we talk about it, and on Thursdays we talk about it a little bit more, and then we perform a song that we have written fairly hastily.
Yeah.
About said film.
Yeah, based on certain themes, sometimes quotes, etc. Whatever it is we pull from the movie. But this movie was so enjoyable and required so little deep thought that we really approached the songwriting process in very much the same way.
Yeah. I mean, this movie is a gift, and the soundtrack is like classic hardcore punk from the LA area. From the early 80s. So that's quite the well.
Yeah.
And so we were talking about like what our angle is, because on some level, the plot of this movie is pretty straightforward, but on others it isn't.
It is not, yeah.
And there's definitely some theories on the internet about this film being much deeper on some levels that I'm not sure I agree with.
I mean, you know, if you think too hard about anything, it can become...
Right. So, I mean, there's people who think it's an allegory of, like, Reaganism, consumerism under Reagan, which I can see to a degree, but perhaps not the most... my friend is letting me know that it's only got 20% battery, so that's good luck on this one.
Yeah.
It's not about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is loosely related in that it is of the 80s. You know, it's a movie that was made in 1984 that is set in 1980 or something. Maybe a little earlier, but it's not like a wildly disproportionate time frame or anything. You know, and the fact that it is about repossessing cars and like the seedy underworld of the Repo Man, which was one of the things that another one of the things that I enjoyed about the movie was like, oh, this is a world I've never seen depicted in film before. What's this all about? Yeah. So, you know, it is kind of like a consumerism gone wrong, or like the dark side of, you know, spending and credit.
And I guess the intersection of that and like punk rock ethos, as much as punk rock ethos were explored in this movie.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, it has, I think, those elements. If you wanted to, you could pull out some kind of an overly intellectual interpretation of that. But I think in doing that, you would miss some of the more enjoyable parts of the movie.
Yeah, I was actually, because this movie is a little bit different from some of the other movies that we've done on this cult films list, and that it did fairly well.
Apparently it did.
And it also, like, reviewed surprisingly well.
Yeah.
Like, Roger Ebert gave this, like, 3 out of 4 or something.
Yeah.
That surprises me a little bit.
Yeah, and I guess, you know, in talking about cult movies, we've typically said, like, a cult movie by definition is something that didn't do well when it came out, but went on to be highly regarded and beloved by a, you know, very small but rabid fan base. This movie feels like a little bit of the opposite. Like, it did really well. It did well mainstream, but it didn't necessarily catch on in any kind of a, like, subculture way until much later.
I don't know. I mean, I think that maybe it did well. Like, it's being graded on a curve.
Yeah,
I
or
think it did well considering it was made for like $100.
right, yeah. I mean, it's like, is it the fact that it did well even though it is a super strange movie? Like, how could a movie like that do as well as it did? But I mean, yeah, it's kind of an anomaly so far among the movies that we've watched, in that when it did come out in theaters, people, I mean, I could see it. It's probably nobody ever saw anything like it before.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're now, the rest of the list, I don't know about Freaks. I have no idea about how Freaks was received. But like, the movie we're doing next week is Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which I think definitively did pretty well when it came out.
Yeah, maybe.
And like Rocky Horror. But I think the thing with all of this next batch is like they did really well and a really specific group of people.
Yeah.
They weren't necessarily they weren't mainstream.
Right.
I mean, number one on this list is Spinal Tap, and I don't know how that was received. Gotta do some research on that one.
I mean, yeah. This is part of our task in this show, is to do the research.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, for a film as weird as it is, that covers so much ground in ways that you don't think could ever be related or connected, and that are never fully resolved in the movie.
Oh, you know how I was like, I don't understand how there's two sets of bad people.
Oh yeah.
So I guess I think it's the lady with the metal hand. One of the groups is scientists.
Oh.
And then those two guys who are clearly
Are the government.
Are the government.
Science versus the government. All right. Well, I mean, honestly, that's good to know, but it doesn't necessarily change the movie.
It doesn't change the movie, but it is like, it's like how are there two sets of bad guys? How do they relate to each other?
Well, because the scientists wanted to get the alien back. Well, they both wanted the alien that was in the trunk. They wanted but that the crazy scientist had kidnapped.
I also, when I was looking for quotes when we were talking about what to write the song about, I saw one like random like moviequotes.com or something that had the most bizarre like plot overview that does not relate. They were saying that like the guy driving the car is a replicant, and I can't remember. It was almost like the wrong plot of the movie, but there were enough details that it clearly was this movie. Just the person who'd written it had taken a very different turn. Fascinating.
Yeah.
So what we did when we went over what aspect to write about, we came back to what we spoke about a little bit last week, which is my favorite characters in the movie, which are the background punks.
Yeah, the like bumbling background mildly criminal characters.
Yeah, so these are Emilio Estevez's friends.
Yeah. Who all think he's like a total square when he starts to be a Repo Man because he wears a tie.
Yeah, but I mean, they already had like one of them had stolen his girlfriend and stuff. They weren't like particularly good friends anyway. But like they just turn up in the background of a lot of things. Like they're always robbing the same store. Badly. They steal the alien car for a bit. They don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
One of them, as we discussed last week, runs into some kind of bollard. And I think at this point amongst us, famously, one of them says, "This is boring, let's go and do some crime."
Yeah.
And then suggests they get sushi and not pay for it as the crime.
Yeah.
And so we wrote a song about those dudes because I love them.
Yeah, and what we kind of took away from the movie was the idea of not overthinking things. And especially when it came to this movie. And apparently when it came to the crimes that these punks were trying to commit, they also didn't overthink it. And a lot of the music in the film, in that scene we had talked about in the last episode where Emilio Estevez is sitting on the railroad tracks, drunkenly singing TV Party, how a lot of those songs are like, they're iconic, super catchy songs, but they don't mean anything.
Yeah, I don't think that like there are Black Flag songs that are definitely about things, and I don't think any of them are on this song.
But they are not. Yeah, no. And you know,
Same for,
sometimes
like,
that's
Circle
okay.
Jerks and the Plugs and you know all these other bands.
Yeah.
That wasn't the focus of this movie.
No, it wasn't.
So should we play it?
Let's do it.
All right. So this is our new Repo Man song. Next week we will be watching, discussing, and writing a song about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
I'm so
pretty
excited. We are
about.
kicking off October with one of the all-time great horror films. October is actually going to be mostly spooky movies.
I mean, technically today is October.
I guess it is. What?
But yeah, lots of spooky adjacent.
Yeah. Spooky. It's going to be a spooky month.
All right.
I should do 4, okay? Classic. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, we kept doing 8 on the way in.
I liked it.
Yeah.
All right.
Right. Here we go.
1, 2, 3, 4. There you have it.
That was our new hit song, Repo Man.
Okay, everybody, have a good weekend. And we are gonna watch Texas Chainsaw Massacre. We will report back.
All right. Bye, guys.